we're gonna need 510 grams of flour. There's 510 grams of flour on the floor. I forgot something. This is like rustic chic.
I think you should crack it.
Crack it? Sounds a little bit criminal to me. I skipped that step, but I think we're just gonna dig in. Hi, I'm Chef Larissa da Costa, and you're watching Read It. Have you ever caught yourself dreaming about running away to a farm, cooking with what you got in your garden, eating with friends under the stars? I might just have a book that will make that dream feel a little bit closer. This is The Farm Table by Julius Roberts. Julius Roberts, he is a young chef who was born in the UK, was a restaurant cook for a restaurant he was very fond of. However, he was tired of the fluorescent lights, he was tired of the hours, and as he was talking and conversing with the purveyors of the restaurant, they were spending a lot of time outdoors, they were always in contact with nature, they were handling animals, harvesting vegetables, and foraging for mushrooms. He realized that this is a much more appealing lifestyle, and he went for it. He quit the restaurant world. He took over a small holding that his family owned and transformed it into a small farm with pigs, goats, and lots of vegetables.
Come on then, chickies. Come on, open the gate. No.
Now he moved to even bigger land. He tries to be the most organic as possible in his farming style, incorporate kind of like small farming mentality into his cooking. And that means that he cooks with the seasons and he cooks with what's best and available at the time. And we're about to know what that means. So today we're gonna make a pumpkin, spinach, and mozzarella lasagna, a recipe from the first chapter of the book, which is winter. Basically, the book is broken down into 4 parts, 4 seasons. The one thing that is a little bit peculiar though is obviously not everybody who buys the book is based in the UK, and some things like rhubarb might be hard to find outside of a farmer's market, or some fish that are very specific to his terroir, but he does try to give you tips and tricks and the suggestions for substitutions along the way. Since our recipe calls for fresh lasagna sheets and I'm gonna make them anyways, I might as well make them with you. If you are an overachiever like myself, you can make this recipe before you make the lasagna recipe. Get it? Hi, you came for a visit? Featuring this star. Leo, do you wanna make pasta with mom? Always, when possible, you want to pass your flour through some kind of sieve. And this helps because if there's any clumps of flour, it makes it much easier to work with. This is obviously a great recipe to do with your kids. We're gonna make a hole in the middle, baby. There's 510 grams of flour on the floor. So for this recipe, we're gonna need 510 grams, roughly, of 00 flour, 4 whole eggs, and 5 to 6 egg yolks. The reason why it's not a very precise measure is because flour really varies in moisture content depending on where you live, how fresh the flour is, and that really is a case-to-case basis. We're gonna beat the eggs. And we're gonna combine the yolks in here too. Especially if you're doing this with kids, it's easier to mix the eggs together first before you mix in your flour. We're gonna make a little well here in the middle. And then we're gonna pour this egg over here. So here I have a little trick for you. Oh, the trick is to add a tiny bit of milk here and a tiny bit of olive oil for pliability. The reason why I like to make a wetter dough is that it's easier to add flour if the dough is too wet than it is to like add more moisture as you go on. So we pull and we fold and we pull and we fold. Right now, ready? Right, your turn. Good job. We're gonna attach the dough hook attachment. And again, you can knead this at home by hand for 4 to 5 minutes. Because it's gonna be hard to do that with my guest here, We're gonna do this in the KitchenAid, just so it's a little bit faster and more exciting. And we just want this dough to be very pliable, very soft, but you don't want it to be sticky in any way. As you can see, when you press your finger, it springs back. So that means that this dough needs to rest for some time before we roll it. I didn't salt my dough because for the recipe I'm making, the lasagna doesn't have very much sauce. So I will parboil this before laying my lasagna sheets with a very salty water. So it doesn't really matter. We're gonna cut this dough in 4 and we're gonna wrap these little discs in plastic film and we're gonna let them rest. So this is our lasagna dough, ready to be refrigerated for 30 minutes minimum to an hour. For the pumpkin spinach lasagna, we're gonna need a pumpkin. The one thing that I will say about this book that I don't love, and it can be a little bit hard to work with, is the fact that the book can be a little vague when it goes into like specific direction. Like, for example, he asks for a pumpkin, but what kind of pumpkin? If you are not like a very experienced cook, this can be a little challenging. But if you are a very intuitive cook, like my grandma, you know, who just adds a dash of this, a pinch of that, and this book is a bit like that. When choosing a pumpkin for a recipe as such, I really like a sweeter, more starchy pumpkin, and a good example of that is like a Hodaiko pumpkin or curry squash. This is a Cinderella pumpkin. They can be very tasty and very sweet, especially here. I'm in the south of France, and these are fantastic when they're in season. A peeler is usually not very helpful in this situation because the closer you get to the peel, the less sweet the pumpkin is going to be. You want to take out the peel very generously. So we're gonna start by cutting our pumpkin in roughly 1 centimeter square cubes. If the pieces vary too much in size, some are gonna roast faster than others. So basically, shape-wise, they don't need to be the same, but about volume-wise, you want it to be similar. So we cut about half of the pumpkin I had, because it's gigantic. 1 pumpkin would be worth like 4 lasagnas. I'm preheating my oven to about 200 degrees Celsius, 400 degrees Fahrenheit. I like lining my pan with parchment, so he recommends 4 tablespoons of olive oil, a little bit of salt here. You don't want your pumpkin to be too close to each other because that makes it hard for it to roast evenly. So if we need to use 2 pans, then so be it. If you're using 2 trays in the oven, I really recommend that you kind of like midway check, because sometimes the heat doesn't transfer well when you double stack the oven. So basically you might want to like switch the tray that's in the bottom for the tray that's in the top, or sometimes just even like flipping it. We're gonna work on our spinach. He asked for 3 pieces of garlic and I'm using 4. I like very garlicky spinach. I like garlicky everything. So we're slicing garlic pretty thin. We're gonna start by lightly cooking this garlic with a bit of olive oil. We're gonna do a few batches of our spinach. So I'm gonna divide the garlic also. Get these just lightly fried while like we start smelling the garlic. We're gonna add 800 grams of spinach. Okay, so he does not say pepper or salt on the spinach. Obviously, that's very conflicting information for me.
I think you should crack it.
Crack it? Crack a little pepper?
Crack that.
The difference in volume, it's amazing. It's wilted down, but it's still like vibrant green. It's not brown and mushy. I think we're ready to take out our first batch. I'm also gonna check on my pumpkin because it's been in here for about 15 minutes. And you know how it's like really golden in this corner, but not so golden in this corner? This is why it's nice to move pans around. It's been about 20 minutes, you say? Top rack still looks like it has a way to go. Bottom rack, there's some caramelization in the corners already. And he does say light caramelization. We're not going for like all the way golden. We're gonna let it cool. Then we're gonna rescue our second pan, but I say this pan still needs a moment. We're gonna go ahead and start with our bechamel. So our butter is melted. We're gonna toast our flour a little bit, and we want the flour to smell like biscuity. I recommend you using milk that's either warm or room temperature. Don't use cold milk. And I have really amazing milk. We got Jersey milk here with like, you can even see like the little bit of fat solids on top, and it smells and tastes delicious. So this is like a rustic chic, you know? I have to say, like, the one thing that I really loved about this book is the photography. You see photos of the landscape, the animals, hands covered in dirt with fresh produce. It is such a gorgeous approach to the book. The food proper is really well photographed. Oftentimes now books are getting very like intense that in the end you don't really know what the final dish is supposed to look like. And this was very like neutral. The pictures look very raw and real. Anyhow, our flour is starting to get golden here. And I'm gonna check one more time on my pumpkin. Some caramelization more in one corner than the other, but it looks pretty legit. We're gonna switch to my whisk and we're gonna add our milk. So the trick here is to add slowly. We're gonna add a bit, incorporate, add a bit more, incorporate as we go. We're gonna basically check the back of a spoon. If you swipe your finger, it just kind of stays that way. It means it's ready. Guess what? I forgot something. I forgot to add the bay leaf again.
Okay.
I'm gonna add now because it's hot. It's hot, and then I can take it out before it blitz. We're gonna grate some nutmeg, half a nutmeg. That's a lot of nutmeg. Very tasty. Very Christmassy. I extracted my bay leaves. I'm gonna add my spinach. We're gonna zest a lemon here. You don't wanna like grate it into the white part of the peel because that is bitter. You really just want this like very thin outer skin. He recommends food processor, blender. I think immersion blender should be okay. I don't want to grate it like too finely because I also don't want it to be like a spinach soup. I'm gonna adjust salt. He suggests a dash of lemon juice, so we're gonna do a little bit, taste and adjust until perfection. Ooh, and this is pretty close to perfection. I'm gonna set this aside, and the next step is to parboil our lasagna sheets, and then we assemble this baby. Squeeze your finger, and you see how there's like an indent now? So this means that this dough has relaxed and the gluten has developed. So I'm just gonna pre-roll a little bit, cut this in half. If you have the standing mixer attachment for the pasta dough, you're gonna work on low speed. Basically, if you crank really fast, your pasta dough is gonna be weird shaped. So we're starting pretty wide, in the widest setting possible. And you're basically going through the machine a couple of times. You're gonna fold it first, squish the bubbles out. Gonna pass through a little bit of a thinner, about 3 times on the second setting. And now we're gonna go just a little finer, a little bit at a time. And you're basically gonna try to make this as wide as your machine. Okay, this is pretty good. If I put my hand through the back, it's a little see-through. You can see the like outline of my hand. So this is a good girth for the dough. If you don't have a little pasta hanger, you can just layer them in a pan with flour in between the sheets so they don't stick together. We're gonna pre-boil, very lightly cooked, our lasagna sheets. I made these by hand with my baby, so they're kind of all in funky shapes and sizes, but we're gonna make it work anyways. So I'm gonna salt the water pretty heavily. My trick to know if it's salty enough is when you taste the water, does it taste like seawater? Actually, the water can use even more salt, believe it or not. So I think in total here I have about 2.5 to 3 full tablespoons of salt. I got a pan here where we're gonna put the sheets after they're cooked to cool. I drizzle a pretty good amount of olive oil here because you don't want them to stick to the pan, you don't want them to stick to each other. So we're gonna go in with the first, just 1 to 2 minutes, just enough to soften the dough. Adding a little layer of oil in between. Before choosing this recipe, we tested a ton of recipes from this book. Beet and goat cheese soup. It photographs really well, but end result itself, I thought was a bit too acidic. I actually had to adjust by adding like a touch of honey in the end, and we ate a ton of this soup. It was very delicious. My favorite recipe in this book so far, it's a apricot tarte tartin. Super well balanced because the apricot is not very sweet. It's like a very tart dessert. Chicken pot pie was fantastic. I thought that fennel seeds on top added a really, really special texture and taste to the dish. It was a chocolate chip cookie with nuts, a little bit of dark chocolate with sea salt. It was quite memorable. I made this recipe with my son. We had a lot of fun doing it. Tá bom?
We also tried the braised short rib over Parmesan polenta, and it was very succulent, just a very comforting meal.
There's a chocolate mousse with like boozy prunes that I thought was fantastic. Beautifully balanced sweetness. I think for accessibility wise, the cost of making a lot of these recipes is kind of like in the middle. You don't see like truffles and caviar and king crab. You have things like short ribs, serrano ham. I really love farm-to-table cooking. You know, it reminds me of cooking at Relais, which was a restaurant I cooked when I was much younger. Cooking hard hours, but then going to the farm, harvesting vegetables, hanging out with pigs, hanging out with chickens, doing Jersey milk bongs. This book reminded me of that and inspired me to start a garden in my backyard. And I don't know, it just kind of reminded me of who I really am as a chef. We're gonna assemble our lasagna. The first layer, we're gonna add a little bit of spinach bechamel, and we're gonna start assembling our very rustic lasagna sheets. In the recipe, he suggests that you pre-boil the sheets and then add them in a bowl of cold water. It sounds a little bit criminal to me. I skipped that step. I have heard from a couple Italians that you should never wash your pasta. Light sprinkle of pumpkin. He has a text introducing the recipe, and he mentions that he makes this lasagna oftentimes with goat cheese that pairs really well with pumpkin, but the recipe itself calls for mozzarella. So I decided that I'll use the mozzarella as the base cheese, but I will sprinkle a little bit of like aged goat cheese here and there just for a little funk. He doesn't specify what kind of mozzarella because we have fresh mozzarella, low moisture mozzarella. So I went with like a medium moisture, which is usually what we use for cooking in Europe. We sprinkle a little bit of spinach cream around, and then we're gonna grate some really nice Parmesan in between each layer. We're gonna sprinkle a couple pieces of this like funky goat cheese and repeat. In between layers, he's asking you to like press it down to like even it out. I'm out of mozzarella, huh?
You want me to get some more?
No. The last layer is gonna be a little less cheesy. Voila, see you in 30 minutes. Time for the big reveal. I'm so excited because it's 10:30 p.m. and I am super hungry and the lasagna smells phenomenal. Very interesting visuals. And I have to make a correction. He asks for mozzarella, bechamel, and parm, and no pumpkin in the last layer. So that was my mistake. Shouldn't be a big deal. I think the reason why he says that is so they don't burn. It didn't really burn, it's just a little crispy. This is supposed to be cooling for like 20 minutes, 15 minutes, but I think we're just gonna dig into it. I'm gonna get a corner piece because I'm a really big fan of these like crunchy edges. Oh, this is not the most beautiful slice. I'm so sorry, guys. This is the time of the big review. Is this lasagna worth it? It's really amazing. A lot going on. The pumpkin adds a really beautiful layer of sweetness. It does a great job kind of adding that creamy, velvety texture that ricotta would usually add, but with a lot more flavor. The cream spinach is just a dream. Like I really, really love cream spinach, and this spinachy bechamel is really to die for. I used fresh homemade lasagna sheets and that was a great choice. So if you have the time and the patience, and I say go for homemade lasagna sheets because it does add a lot of flavor. It's like very rustic, it's a little thicker than a store-bought lasagna. You can really taste like the fresh eggs. The nutmeg adds like a very special touch. I don't know, I usually don't go for vegetarian lasagnas, but I really do not miss the bolognese here. It's perfect. Go make this lasagna. This was so worth the time and the time investment. Who should get this book? I think this book is for someone who is an intermediate to very experienced cook. If you're a beginner and you just need a lot of inspiration and you feel like you're willing to make some mistakes along the way, this book could be for you too. It's not per se like a vegetarian cookbook by any means. It's very omnivore friendly, but there are a lot of vegetarian dishes here that are gorgeous, like the recipe we just made today, the lasagna. So this book really hit home for me, and I really hope that you purchase and enjoy it. If you do, let me know what you think. And if you have suggestions of other books that I could review in the future, please drop them in the comments below and let me know what you think of your lasagna. I'm really curious to see what your results are like. So big kisses, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.